Bill Dance Outdoors, sponsored by Bass Pro Shops, where you get more outdoors for your money. And these other fine sponsors: Quantum, tools for fishermen; Bomber Baits, tough, true-running crankbaits; ProCraft Boats, it's tough to top a pro; Terminator Titanium Fishing Lures, not without imitation, absolutely without equal; and Mercury, #1 on the water.
Now I've gone fishing with Bill Dance today.
Closed captioning is provided courtesy of Eagle Claw's new Pro Series, the only fish hook with both a needle tip and forged point. Eagle Claw, an American tradition in quality and excellence. Welcome to an Ask Bill Week here on Bill Dance Outdoors. During these special episodes airing throughout the season, Bill will answer all kinds of fishing-related questions sent in by his viewers.
Easy. Ah, got you. Nice. All right, boy. Good morning, everybody. You know, over the past year at Bill Dance Outdoors, we've received many good questions about crankbaits and how to fish them. Today, we'd like to share a few of them with you, like this one here, concerning looks. When I purchase a deep diving crankbait, what should I look for? Well, let me tell you what I look for. First is looks, no pun intended. It has to look good in order for me to buy and use it. Now that may sound a little silly to a lot of people, but to me that's really important because it's part of the confidence game. Secondly, I want a crankbait that has the weight to accurately cast it a long distance, even in a strong wind. Third, I want a bait that will vertically dive quickly and does not create a lot of resistance on the retrieve. Fourth, I want it to create a good wiggle once it gets down. Fifth, it must have quality sharp hooks. Sixth, it needs to produce an inviting sound. Seventh, most times I like a crankbait that has a straight lip for quicker depth control and one that has kick-out features on each side of the lip where it deflects off solid objects before the hooks can become snagged. However, on sloping banks, I'll switch to an angle lip bait many times that allow the lure to track down the sloping contour much easier. And finally, I want a crankbait that has good buoyancy, where it backs up quickly when you stop your retrieve. Now that's extremely important when bass are extremely picky. Whoop, 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 where are you going, boy? Hey, you're full of yourself this morning, aren't you? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. We got you in the bottom lip and the top lip. Okay, little man, here we go. All righty, here's a good one. Is line size important in obtaining greater depth with a crankbait? Well, you bet it is. Line size plays a very important role in the depth that you obtain with a crankbait. You're simply going to get more depth with lighter weight line. The reason is that the lighter the line, the smaller the diameter, so there's less friction coming through the water. You'd be surprised in the difference in 10-pound test line and 20-pound test. With the average crankbait, you can gain a couple of extra feet of depth using 10-pound test line, and in many situations, that extra 2 feet can be very critical. But there's a point when you go below 10-pound test that you can actually lose a little depth because of line stretch. Now, one other thing to remember is that you also sacrifice depth if your crankbait is not tracking dead center. This little guy. Hey there. How you doing? Come up here, Buster. Come up here, little rascal. Just eat. Now, where are my pliers? Boy, you got that little hooks everywhere, didn't you? Okay, moving along. Here's one about cranking speed. To gain maximum depth with a crankbait, should you reel fast or slow? Now, that's a good question. Many fishermen believe that the faster you crank a bait of this type, the deeper it'll dive. Well, that's totally wrong. For a crankbait to gain its maximum depth, a slow to moderate retrieve will send it deep. Once it hits the surface, 5 or 6 fast turns of the reel handle will get it started. And then a slow to moderate retrieve will allow it to dive to its maximum depth. Water pressure must flow off both sides of the lip equally in order for the lure to dive properly. When you use a fast retrieve or really try to burn it, the water pressure begins to flow off the front portion of the lip, creating a wet stick effect that restricts the depth as well as the action. Naturally, line size, line diameter, and the distance of cast can also affect the depth the bait will dive.
If you had your own movie theater, what kinds of movies would you show?
Use your imagination.
I'd show my kind of stories. Great dramas.
Stories that are true to life.
And don't forget romances and stars.
Radio Madonna!
Welcome to Lifetime Movie Network. It's your kind of movie showing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Lifetime Movie Network. Your movie's on.
Lifetime Movie Network. Now available on digital cable from Time Warner.
Did I ever tell you I had a wee horrible satellite dish?
My new Time Warner digital cable is super.
No one told me a dish needed a phone line. Never had a complaint with my cable. The dish didn't work right in the wing. Ooh, cable with high-definition TV. The dish people charge me more for service on every TV. But now I have Time Warner digital cable and a very pricey bird bath.
Outdoors is brought to you in part by Plano Tackle Systems. 3 generations and 50 years of quality and experience.
Look at that one blast that thing. All right.
At Bass Pro Shops, we know these are the times of your life.
I got a fish here. Easy, eh? Oh, man.
Be ready for them.
What is that? A fish? Nice fish.
No matter how you like to shop, get more outdoors for your money with Bass Pro Shops.
How fast is fast enough? How smooth is smooth? How final is the final version? How can you leave possibility alone when you can customize it, modify it, and make it better? Introducing Quantum Performance Tuned, tricked out, hand-tuned versions of standard equipment personally customized by Quantum engineers. Performance Tuned by Quantum.
It's about time. New boat, Jimmy? Yep. Let's break her in. It's gonna get choppy. Better take mine.
Chop schmop. Mine's got an all-welded hull, too.
Yeah, but does it have a lifetime warranty?
Sure does.
Jimmy, we're in the same exact boat.
For years, they've been in the same business. Now, they're in the same boat. For a limited time, get 0% APR with no payments till June on all Fisher boats. Hurry to your Fisher dealer now.
Are you ready?
For a lifetime, Bill.
I'm going to talk tough to y'all today. When I want to fish a buoyant crankbait, I'm going straight to my box full of Bomber Fat A's. Fat A's are built bomber tough and feature the back-out characteristics and buoyancy of balsa bait. But a Fat A is better. It has the toughness of a bomber plastic lure. Hey, I'm fortunate to have 3 Bass Angler of the Year trophies on my wall. I'm out to catch them when I go fishing, and that's why I use Bomber Fat A's.
Bomber Fat A's. Tough, true running crankbaits.
Okay, here's one about crankbaits and water temperature. In one of your recent shows, you mentioned that water temperature can affect the running depth of a crankbait. Can you explain? Water temperature can affect depth. The warmer water gets, the thinner it becomes. The colder it gets, the thicker or more dense it becomes. Obviously then, a crankbait will dive a little deeper in thinner or warmer water. In many situations, an extra foot or two can really make a difference. Naturally, there are other things to consider that can affect running depth, such as line size and diameter, lip position, body profile and shape, distance of cast, retrieve speed, even the type of material the lure is made of. And finally, the model. Is it a floater or suspended? Here's one that we've answered before, but it's worth answering again.
What's more important in a fishing lure, action or sound? Well, this depends on the water clarity. In extreme clear water, I would probably say action, but in stained to off-colored situations or during low light conditions, I'd have to say sound is better. Why? Well, action is not worth a hoot until the fish can see it. And so many times a bass may not see your offering until he first hears it as it approaches or goes by a short distance.
Well, if the sound is attractive, he'll search it out, and once located, if the action is appealing, he'll then make the decision whether to smack it or not. And this is why it's so doggone important to fish the ideal depth, location, and use the proper color.
That is a fish. Oh, golly, that's a heavy one there.
Oh, buddy, look right here.
Oh, big boy.
Tell me a little bait won't catch a big fish, because it will. It ain't caught him yet, though, I'm telling you.
Coming back around.
Oh, didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? Oh, don't you let me just get my hand in your mouth. Ah, just about got off. Woo! Boy! Yes, sir. Ain't that a dandy? Woo! Golly, pretty thing. You pretty baby. Yes, you are. See ya. Okay, here's one asking a question about line weight. Can heavyweight line affect the action of a crankbait? You bet it can. The biggest problem created by using heavier line with crankbaits is altering that all-important vibration pattern. Anything that moves through the water vibrates to some degree. And line also makes noise moving through the water. Naturally, the smaller the lure, the more critical the problem becomes, both in terms of depth and vibration. Larger lures, say those about 3 inches or more in length, do not present as much of a problem, except that with heavier line, it's harder to gain maximum depth and casting distance, especially into a wind.
Bill Dance Outdoors is brought to you in part by Eagle Claw, an American tradition in quality and excellence, and Pinpoint, things you've never seen before. Today's conditions log is brought to you by Stren. Make the switch to Stren, the most dependable fishing lines in the world.
Larry Dahlberg for Stren Fishing Line.
When I'm looking for something really big, I pull up a Stren.
The most exciting thing about fishing in the middle of nowhere is that you never know what kind of a creature you're going to tie into. I'm not about to travel halfway around the world to hook a big fish and chance it on just any fishing line.
You only get so many bites in your life. Why take a chance? Switch to Stren.
Stren, the most dependable fishing lines in the world.
I've never had a jig that's better as heavy cover than Terminator, period. Add a free-swimming rattle system, titanium trailer keeper, and it's easy to see why it's the best jig in bass fishing. Get it?
Terminator's finesse jigs incorporate a titanium weed guard that I designed. And all Terminator jigs feature air-alive skirts that trap tiny air bubbles, just like the real thing. Get it?
Terminator, by far the best jigs. Get it? He does.
Bill Dan. Meet Bill Gates. Introducing the Pinpoint Sonar Ready Tour Edition from Motor Guide. The first trolling motor with 109 pounds of thrust and a built-in transducer. Engineered to connect with the most advanced sonar display ever made. Eliminating interference, exposed wires, and any reason to buy another trolling motor. The new Pinpoint Sonar Ready Motor Guide. Take on the world.
Today's equipment log is brought to you by Pennzoil Marine. Try Pennzoil Marine Premium Plus, a synthetic blend for added engine protection and less smoke, or new Pennzoil 100% synthetic. All the advantages of a synthetic, plus it's biodegradable.
Little fish. Chow! You gonna make me get down too, aren't you? Huh? Yeah, you are. Don't get cute, buddy. And that little sharp hook in my finger. Good night. Look, it just fell out. Little potty baby. Here you are. See you. Let me show you the bait we're using today. It's Rebel's We Are. It's a tight wiggling little job that'll run about 8 to 9 feet on a long cast. This line of lures is another group of baits that were hotter than a jar of habanero peppers years ago. But like many things, they got lost in the shuffle with all the promotion of new products. Bass liked them back then, and today they still do. No. Yo. Woo, you full of yourself. You just full of yourself, ain't you, Dave? Little man, don't you dare jump. Well, let's see what we're going to do here. I never do have my plier. I've got a plier holder here. And I don't know why I don't use it. Is it a tight wiggle or a wide wobble? Sounds like a new dance step. Whatever, that's the question. Do you prefer a crankbait that wiggles or wobbles? And why? Well, both. And let me explain. Bass for sure show a preference for the way a crankbait swims more times than you might believe. I normally select tight wiggling lures for inactive bass and wide wobbling lures for aggressive warm water fish that are triggered by a more active approach. And I prefer a wide wobbling lure in low light conditions and in off-colored water. Okay, moving along. Here's another question concerning line size. I've heard many avid crankbait fishermen say that you can reach maximum depth control when using smaller line size. Well, you heard right, especially if you're using a long enough rod and you make a long enough cast. Depth is dictated by line size, not in regards to pound test. The larger the diameter, the more depth robbing friction occurs as the line is being pulled through the water. Disregard the line manufacturer's line strength claim and consider the actual diameter of the line. Now I know what you're thinking, and you're right. Catching a good-sized bass on 8 to 10 pound test line in and around cover, well, it is difficult, no doubt about it. But a big fish needs to be finessed. What you want to do is be sure your drag is set properly and that the hooks on your crankbait are extremely sharp. It'll make a big, big difference. Sure, you're going to miss some fish, but look how many you'll miss by not getting your lure down to their depth level. Boy, the mouth of this ditch right here ought to be more than one fish. Now, this is a high percentage spot. Any place you can find where a ditch comes into a main lake, especially if water's flowing through it. You may not catch a fish there, but it's worth checking it out 2 or 3 times during the day.
Be ready with Bass Pro Shops. For the perfect combination of superior strength and high abrasion resistance, switch to Original Strand, the most dependable fishing line in the world. Quantum's new performance-tuned energy bait cast reel combines advanced engineering and hot sauce lubrication for unmatched strength and smoothness. More ways to shop, more outdoors for your money. Bass Pro Shops.
One of the toughest things for a unit to do is be able to read well in the back of a creek where it's silted in and real soft bottom and real shallow water, like 2 foot of water. Most units lose the bottom, and this unit right here has the best shallow water performance of any that I've used.
Don't just find fish other fish finders miss. Find fish in places you never knew they existed. Pinpoint. For more information, visit pinpointfishing.com.
Spittin' Image and Poppin' Image. World-class topwater lures.
Barry Stokes for Stren Fishing Line.
I switched to Stren Fishing Line nearly 9 years ago. Today, it's the only fishing line on all my reels. It's no secret that big fish hang out in heavy cover. That's how they get to be big fish. But brush piles, lily pads, and rock formations are no longer safe havens if you have Stren extra strength line on your reel. Make the switch to Stren. You'll be glad you did.
Stren, the most dependable fishing lines in the world.
Number 1 on the water. Saying it's one thing, proving it's another. Number 1 on the water.
Coming right at me, boy. A little bit heavier here. Whoa, come on back, come on back. Here he comes back around. Hard pulling fish, boy. Woo. Where you going? Not a nice fish. Come here. Whoa. Slide right there. That little rascal right there is a good bait. And that's a nice, pretty chunky fish. Okay, here's another one. What color crankbaits do you use in murky water? This question is probably the most often asked about fishing crankbaits in murky water, and that is what color to use. Well, I usually favor crawfish patterns during the spring when water temperatures range from 55 to 75 degrees. Now, when water temperature climbs above 75 degrees, I'll normally switch off to shad patterns. For me, darker colors often work best in extremely muddy water simply because they hold their identity. Even when the sun is shining brightly, a flat finish often shows up better in soupy water than a reflective finish.
Oh, boy. Knocked the fire out of it.
Oh, there's another big fish. Another good one. Boy, he's just dogging it. Good night. Come up here. Oh, look at that boy right there. That is a chunky, oh man, that is a good. And he comes back around. Dogging it. Oh, oh, big boy. Easy, come up here. He's trying to throw it in. All right. Hold him, little hook. Watch your hands, Bill. I just want to touch that fish, and I got him. Boy, he looked like a log cutting out through there. Oh, boy. That pretty. Golly. Special thing. Grow up and I'll see you next time. Oh. You never get too old to enjoy that. If you do, something's wrong with you. As you well know, it would be totally impossible to crank out all the questions about these remarkable lures. Today, we've covered a few. And this year, in future shows, what we'll do is try to answer some more. And if you've got one, do me a favor, send it to us. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Stay tuned after these messages for Bill's Fishing Tip of the Week.
Subscribe now for 6 information-packed issues of Bill's new Bill Dance's Fishing magazine for just $16.99 and receive this limited edition Bill Dance buck knife absolutely free.